Hi there. Welcome to my channel, Holy Ache Tarot. I'm so happy to be spending this time with you, to be sharing this space with you, and hopefully to build a community with you. How are you feeling? How are you doing? How's life been treating you? How's quarantine been treating you? I'm feeling decent. Anxious to be filming this video. My mouth is currently on fire because I made my chana masala way too spicy. But here we are, moving along, getting things done, starting new things, which is very appropriate considering we are moving into the new moon in Gemini. New moons are all about starting new things, taking new chances, manifesting, stepping outside of your comfort zone, having new ideas. And Gemini is a mutable air sign, very much about making connections, communicating, coming to new conclusions, understanding things in innovative ways. It's a very intellectual sign outside of all of the stereotypes people have about Geminis. I can go on about that because I am a Gemini sun. So I'm kind of excited but kind of feeling bittersweet about this Gemini new moon, because, you know, my birthday's coming up, and like a lot of people, you know, around this time of the year is, at least in the northern hemisphere, I'd imagine, is a time of celebration. People graduating, the end of the school year. In the United States, it's Memorial Day weekend coming up. Summer is upon us, and it doesn't look like it did a year ago. It doesn't feel like it did a year ago. We might feel different, you know. In times of solitude, we learn new things about ourselves, if we allow it. Some of us might be really struggling to spend time by ourselves or with our families, or I wouldn't even go so far as to say having distractions, because, you know, wanting to be out of the house isn't necessarily a distraction. Being in nature can be deeply rejuvenative. Spending quality time, intimate time, touching someone that you love, it's deeply rejuvenative, and we don't have access to those things. We're not able to celebrate or express ourselves in the ways that we once were able to. And obviously, of course, that would lead us on a different journey within ourselves. If you are accustomed to taking moments of discomfort and using them to look deeper within yourself, I'm sure over the last 2 or 3 months you've found out new things about yourself. And, you know, if there's something beautiful that can be, excuse me, the spice in my throat is just tickling up and scratching away. Ugh. But crap, what was I saying? These last 2-3 months, oh yes, if there's anything beautiful that can come out of it, is coming to a new understanding of who we are and what we want. And today, that's essentially kind of what I'm talking about with this new moon in Gemini tarot reading. I'm just going to be using my handy dandy tarot deck. This is the Neo tarot deck. One of my favorites. Is a beautiful deck. And getting some messages about where we're being called to place our focus around this time. What's the general focus for us? Where we're going to be guided to come to new understandings over the next 2 weeks as we move into the Sagittarius full moon, which is going to be a partial lunar eclipse. Let's get into this tarot cards. Okay, allow me to drop in just a moment. Where are we being called to place our focus for the new moon in Gemini? I like you. You. We'll put these off to the side. Not sure if I want more messages than what I've got. Whew. Okay. So we've got the Queen of Swords. Sorry, the light is kind of shitty. Let me see something. Hold on. Is that better? Oh. Pardon me. Excuse me. Ah. Okay. That was more difficult than I thought it would be. I think that's better lighting. The other one I thought was more intimate, but this I feel like you can actually see. So you got the Queen of Swords and the Seven of Cups. Yeah, these I don't know that I need, but I'm just gonna look at the bottom of the deck here. And pardon me, like I said, that spice is just kind of it's breaking things apart in my sinuses, which is probably gross to say, but whatever. Anyway, so at the bottom of the deck we have the Chariot card, which I've been learning a lot about the Chariot card recently, and what I'm understanding about it is that it's very much a card of releasing ourselves from our idea of ourselves, who we feel like we need to be, what we feel like we need to achieve, kind of the armor that we place to be someone in the world, be identifiable, to be knowable, to be lovable, to be worthy in the way that we imagine that to be, based on our surroundings, our past experiences, what the people around us have told us is worthy, lovable, X, Y, and Z, etc., etc. But the Chariot is really like taking a look at these things, taking a look at who we've built ourselves up to be and why we've built ourselves up to be that way, and maybe realizing that some of these things aren't necessarily authentic to who we are, or that these things that we thought were so true about ourselves are really just things that we wanted to be true about ourselves, because we thought that if we were these things, if we had these things, if we'd achieved these accomplishments, so to speak. Sorry, it was all the way up here. If we'd achieved these accomplishments, so to speak, then we could be someone, like I said, identifiable, knowable. But if you notice, it's called, this was, I have to say this isn't mine. I got this from someone else. But if you notice, it's called the Chariot, not the Charioteer. We're not focusing on the person. It's focusing on the surroundings that guide this person forward, and what motivates this person. And I'd imagine in this time of solitude, which solitude usually beckons us towards reflection, we're being forced to look at those things. And like I said, weighing if they actually have value on a soul level and not just on a superficial level. And with Queen of Swords and the Seven of Cups, Seven of Cups really is being called to my attention, because I look at this as like someone who's got all of these thoughts, plans, goals, wishes, and dreams, and just kind of like realizing the delusion around them, realizing what does and doesn't have value. And with the Queen of Swords, like I get, whenever I look at the Queen of Swords, it's very much a person that knows themselves. And with it being a queen, with it being somewhat feminine energy, so to speak, I would imagine it's a thing of getting to know ourselves past what we've how can I explain this? Getting to know ourselves outside of how we've labeled ourselves. Getting to know, I guess, the soft meat under the crab shell. You know, I've been thinking about this a lot myself. For a lot of my life, I have only placed value on what parts of myself, my personality, could be immediately knowable and likable to another person. And I'm realizing now that those parts of me, they're not really me. They're just kind of like labels. And these labels that I've kind of placed on myself weren't even based on who I actually was, but more so an archetype of who I wanted to be, the kind of woman I wanted people to see when they see me, rather than the messy. And when I say messy, I don't mean that in a negative sense, but the parts of me that kind of color outside of the lines, the parts of me that I don't necessarily have a word for, or the parts of me that aren't immediately knowable, that I can't, place in my hands and say, yes, this is me here. Do you see me now? The parts of myself that are deeply intimate to me. And I get the sense here of like we're really being called to look at ourselves on a deep level. I am not everything that maybe I tried to project that I am. Maybe the things that I really, really hope to be just aren't in alignment with who I actually am. They don't make me feel good. They don't bring me true satisfaction. Okay, and I kind of want some clarifiers here. And it's interesting. So I pulled a clarifier for these two cards, and I got the Seven of Swords reversed and the Ace of Swords reversed. So it's a very swords time, which is appropriate because swords symbolize air, and Gemini is an air sign. So it's very much a time of mental release, in a sense of releasing our idea that we have to be more than who we are, or releasing the idea that we have to know everything in order to move forward with something. But what lies outside of all of this is finding satisfaction with who we actually are. Outside of needing to be, needing to know, needing to be rational, needing to be logical, needing to be known by mass society, needing to be liked on a mass level, which is interesting that things are getting a bit deeper in Gemini season. And not to say like Geminis on the whole are this way, but Gemini energy as it is somewhat of a more superficial level. It prefers to be in the mind than in the spirit. But with the Seven of Cups also, I'm getting to, it's just like a review of our emotions, a review also of like a review of why we felt the need to put on, I wouldn't go so far as to call it a facade, but looking at why where we kind of veered off course from our actual truth, and deciding to mature the parts of ourselves that we haven't allowed to grow. Okay, so I've got these decks. Just gonna go ahead and shuffle here. Ooh, that's 4 cards. I think I'll keep them, but I only want one of these other ones. Yeah. Mm. Okay, so we've got anything you want to find, it's out there somewhere. Reflect. Love your dark side too. Emerge. Then we have the void and bear, which these two cards are calling my attention here because with the bear card, it's very much a sign of coming out of hibernation. And I mean, you could take that to be more of like a literal meaning of like coming out of hibernation of quarantine, but who knows if that's actually going to be a thing, or like how much out of hibernation can we come from quarantine. But I say it's more so on like a soul level, on a spirit level, especially too when we've got like love your dark side too. This reminds me very much of the yin yang symbol, of like somewhat aligning your masculine and feminine. And I've been thinking a lot about the idea of divine masculine and feminine, specifically the masculine feminine, the divine feminine, which would be the dark side, which I think is more so the parts of ourselves that lie outside of the logical, the rational, the linear in a sense. How can I speak about this without getting like going on a whole tangent on feminism, like feminine energy and how powerful it is. But I guess like I look at this a lot because, and I'm not talking about this on a level of like man or woman, but just like the feminine in general. There's a sense of like, we don't respect the feminine. We don't respect anything that is not immediately understandable, that is not, that it is, we don't respect what can't be immediately seen and understood. We don't respect what falls outside of logic. We don't respect what's not easily managed, so to speak. And I kind of hear that rhetoric a lot when people talk negatively about women in general, of like, oh, she expects too much, she's too needy, she's too sensitive, or even not even women in general, but I would even say like more quote unquote feminine men, men that don't align themselves with more like masculine bravado, so to speak, of like, I said I was trying to explain this without going off on a tangent, but I think that I'm speaking about this honestly from my own journey and experience of understanding myself outside of what I have allowed myself to be. And a lot of what I've allowed myself to be, or what more better to say, is what I haven't allowed myself to be is sensitive, is needy, is irrational, is unexplainable, unattainable, not easily managed, because that would make me too much of a woman, too much of an unlovable woman. Those women that just don't know what they want and cry over everything and just need too much. And I don't know. I question a lot of that that line of thinking, and I realized that there was so much of myself that I cut off because I wasn't allowing myself to be sensitive. I wasn't allowing myself to feel outside of what my mind could comprehend. And even with this reflection card, it's like, I would imagine, like I said, a lot of us have been taking this time to reflect, to dig deep within ourselves. And maybe we're realizing things about ourselves that maybe don't fit in with what the world considers easy. And I think that's more or so what falls in line with what the world considers lovable, is what is easily managed. And it's like allowing that part of ourselves to emerge after this time of hibernation, after this time of just kind of sitting within our void. And we might not have, clear, concise conclusions about what really comprises of our darkness, and and why it's there, and what it even actually feels like to genuinely just be in the void and to be in our darkness, and to, I guess, kind of like, I would say more so the energy that we're coming with here is releasing the stigma around darkness. That just because you're not easy doesn't mean that you aren't lovable. That just because there are parts of yourself that aren't easily understandable doesn't mean that you aren't lovable. The people that matter to you, the people whom you matter to, will take the time to understand you, will take the time to sit with you and your emotions and your neediness and your sensitivity. Anything you want to find is out there somewhere. I think so much of what we consider ourselves to be, how do I want to say this? I wouldn't even go so far as what we consider ourselves to be, but I know for a lot of people out there, myself included, there's a lot within myself that I just didn't want to look at, that I didn't want to acknowledge, that I didn't want to accept. Or, shoot, is this light going shitty again? I don't know what to do. Hold on. Still ain't great. But so much of who we try to be is because we assume that there isn't someone out there that will love us, or there isn't an opportunity out there that will fulfill that particular part of ourselves. So we deny it. We say it's not there. We place greater importance on the parts of ourselves that are easy, that are understandable, and we say, well, look at this part of me. Don't look at all of the darkness. Don't look at all of the parts of me that are harder to know because they're meant to be felt, if I'm making sense. And I can hear in my voice that I'm starting to get more and more into the realm of things where I don't necessarily have the language for. So I might just stop this here. Yes, I think I will. I think I'll stop this here. I've been talking for quite some time now anyway. But yeah, before I let you go, I do hope you enjoyed this video. But I will say I want this to be, what I really want to build is a community of sorts. Although I'm here shuffling my tarot cards and channeling messages, if you will, for the energies, I don't want this to be a one-sided relationship, if that makes sense. And even for me, when I read tarot for myself, I'll look at the cards and I might have a certain understanding of them. But as the days go on, as we near the full moon, the messages that I receive, they kind of hit differently, and I come to a different understanding of them. I guess what I'm trying to say is I'd love to hear how this new moon in Gemini impacts you. And a lot of times for me, it's not like the day of the new moon. I'm just like, enlightened, I understand. Usually it takes some days for it to marinate and really germinate in my understanding, in my body, so to speak. But yeah, I'd love to know how this new moon impacts you, what insights you receive, what insights you've received thus far about yourself throughout this year. You know, I would, like I said, I would love for this to be more of a community where we, as I was saying, I would love for this to be a community where we discuss how we're growing and we learn from one another. I certainly don't know everything, and I want to learn from whatever community I build on this platform as well. So yes, if you enjoyed this video, I'd love for you to let me know what insights you have had around this time. Let me know how you're feeling. You know, when I asked at the beginning of this video, I really meant it. I would like to know how you're feeling and what's going on in your life and what insights you're coming to and what you're understanding about yourself, because I mean, I learn just from listening to other people talk all of the time. hearing from other people's stories all the time. So yes, that's enough rambling for me. Like I said, I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope to see you next time. Thanks so much. Ciao for now.